What is interesting is that, of course, we're surrounded by some very trusted clients. Not only are we the trusted advisors to our clients are our trusted clients. And we have them in the room, and they're listening of the trends that are changing and developing in the industry. And we're very happy that we'll have some breakout sessions in the course of the day. But being true to this presentation that we just had, Mr. Bossman, the writing of a book like this is also going to be commoditized pretty soon, so you should give us the book for free. Yeah? Okay, so just very quickly, we are going to announce a couple of changes in the program, but it is now my pleasure to move us to the next leg of the conference, which is to turn the time over to Alan, who is going to moderate a panel comprised of four very special guests and VIPs who are clients, both lawyers, compliance officer, and a CFO. You all know, of course, Brenda Perry's a standard featured guest rock star from Texas who is going to be part of the panel, so we let her make her way up here. Carol Everard is the Chief Legal Counsel for Ingram Micro. It's a client that we've known for years, been to their offices in Southern California. Carl is recently, well, it's now almost 2 years that he relocated to lovely Sofia, Bulgaria. He's responsible for the legal affairs of the European continent, and we help him in a number of countries. And then our friends from Caterpillar, both Stinson and Christina will join us. Christina being the contracts and chief compliance officer, and Stinson is the VP, who we have been working as a managing director in 70 countries. And the idea of the panel is, and you'll see how Alan is going to manage this, is now to let the very people that we serve let you know what the trends are. In other words, what you heard from the speaker a few minutes ago, how do they relate to that? And do they agree, disagree, do they see other trends? So this will be kind of the preview, the trailer for then the breakout sessions that we will have later on, where each of these very trusted and very valuable clients will share with us about the projects that we're working and that you are actually working on. Okay, so without further ado, if we could have Christina and Stinson come and join us, and Carl. And then Alan is going to be moderating the panel. So I'm going to let Alan do the introductions of the subject, and then after this panel, I'll come back and make some further announcements. Alan, it's your floor.
Okay, we only have one microphone, so we're going to have to sort of juggle along for you to hear. But I thought if we start actually with each person just very briefly, just giving you a little snapshot of what their company does, and very, very quickly, their connection with First Law International. I thought just so that people have a bit of background. Can we start? Move down there.
Thank you. I'm Cristina Modugno, and I work for Turbomac and Solar. Those are companies in the oil and gas and the energy sector. And in particular, our group is a group focused on connectivity. So we deliver connectivity solutions to our customers. And so our market, we are focused more on IT and telecommunication. Stinson is our general manager.
Hello, Stinson McElhenney here. Thanks for the introduction, Christina, to Solar and Turbomac. Maybe the connection with FLI, First Law International, was about 5 years ago when we started an initiative to evaluate the telecommunications laws across 60 or 70 countries, really trying to make sure that we were actually compliant in those countries that we were doing remote monitoring and diagnostics. And now here to refresh that guidance and add some additional topics, some of the new things that are coming out around data protection, data privacy, data export, encryption, all things that are relevant, I guess, for technology businesses.
Thanks, Tinson. Brenda?
Good morning, Brenda Perry. Our company is a wholesale manufacturer and distributor of valves and actuators, not necessarily a very sexy product, but something that is required for any type of infrastructure, pipelines, etc. If you need to control the flow of a gas or fluid, you need a valve. So this is what we do internationally. We have currently about 85 locations globally, and most of those are actually international. And in the last 2 years, I've become acquainted with a large number of the attendees here, so it was almost like meeting old friends again this week. We began working with FLI in our first transaction in, I believe, South Africa. And from there, we moved to India and Netherlands and Germany and have had a great experience in most of the countries. So my position at Bray is CFO, but as that, I wear a great number of hats, which also covers human resources, IT, and most recently compliance. So we're spending a lot of time in the past year on compliance, and this is where our focus will probably remain for the short term. This started probably 3 or 4 years ago with our local Houston Counsel, Mr. Kerry Gray, raising the red flag about the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and that we'd better be paying attention because of all of the fines that we're starting, and that's just led into more and more compliance issues.
My name is Karel Everaerts. I'm the Associate General Counsel for what we call the Near Time Zone Europe and the Middle East and Africa, based out of Sofia, Bulgaria, working for Ingram Micro. Ingram Micro is a US from origin wholesale IT distribution company for many years. But the last couple of years we've been developing, obviously I mentioned cloud, in the cloud business, also in the e-commerce and fulfillment services and lifecycle services. We've done several acquisitions in that respect, so we're a global service company in that sense. The relationship with FLI has grown because we were growing rapidly in a lot of jurisdictions where we were not present and looking for good outside counsel, mainly in Asia, Middle East and Africa for the time being. And I hope that develops further.
Thanks, Carol. I'm sure you'll be besieged afterwards by a few people. I thought I'd just throw a big question out to start with, and really coming from the client side, what are the 2, 3 big trends that the clients are seeing as they look inwards at the legal industry? Who'd like to lead off? Stinson, want to go with that one?
Sure.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm, preface this with I'm probably not the best person to talk about trends in the legal industry. We tend to rely heavily on internal counsel through Caterpillar, and Cat has a pretty big internal, let's say, legal department, and they're the ones that are really on point for sourcing outside counsel. From the experience that we've had, that's been very tailored to telecommunications, tailored to technology, and one of the reasons we've let's say advocated for working with First Law through this process was really having the global network, which was quite powerful. So rarely do you find the ability to get to such great, let's say, great reach of countries with going to a single source. So it's a very timely process to source new suppliers or new firms, to set up agreements with each of these new firms, and to try to actually transact and do business and to do it at the same standard and quality. So I think for me, one of the powerful things is really having this single source that we can go to, and having the reach across all the countries. And really, why is that important? Well, it's a matter of velocity, and it's a matter of standardized and consistent pricing. So value to us, at least from my perspective in our group, is being able to do it quick, being able to do it fast, being able to do it inexpensively, and being able to do it consistently. So
that's good. Christina, you want to have a go?
Yes, what Can I say that it's very important, most of all during the last years, since the market faced a quite important crisis. It's very important to get advices from a very specialized law firm, so that the advice is very focused on our topic, and it's quicker because, of course, any law firm can deliver an advice. It's sufficient to look for the laws, to analyze and to explain, but a specialized law firm takes half of the time in respect of another law firm. So, and then it delivers solutions, because we are not happy only with a list of the applicable law, a list of the regulation, but we want concrete solutions. So at the end, we want from an advice, from a legal memo that the attorneys delivers a solution, so they suggest how the company should act, and if there are restrictions and limitations, how we can face and solve all limitations. So we want very effective legal memos, most of all in those years, and of course all legal department face cost restriction cuts, so it's very important to be very effective. So it's important to have a very specialized law firm which deliver very concrete solutions.
I think that comes through quite often. We hear is that the law is the bit in the middle. There's the problem and there's the solution. The legal answer is not the final answer, it's part of getting to the answer. I think that's becoming more apparent to many people. Brenda, you want to pick up the big trends you see?
Sure. I think that's exactly right. What we're seeing more and more is just the acceleration of transactions and also the expectations along with that. It's about knowing your client, knowing our client's business, and understanding their business model, so that if an opinion is sought in a particular country, you can immediately apply that to the business model that we're operating under, rather than preparing an all-inclusive response. This is what would affect our company in that country. So it's very specific to know the client.
Yeah, on that last point, I think it's very valuable if a law firm spends some time in understanding the client and can think with the business. We all can read the law, we all can go on Google apparently these days, or on other platforms, and find out what the exact text of the law is. But you have the practical implementation of what the law means, and bringing that back to the business of the client. And to do that, you need to have some basic knowledge of the business of the client and discuss that with him and get a good understanding of that. That's what makes you as an outside counsel very valuable.
On that note, let's pick up the next thing, which I think we do need to touch on, is the issue of price, and how important is price in the overall buying decision. I'm not sure whether Caterpillar decide that for you or whether you decide yourselves, but I think we might pick up from Brenda and pick up, how important is price in the whole equation? And does it depend on the type of work, and what are the things that can offset a slightly higher price? What are things lawyers can do that says, this is expensive, but?
Well, anyone that has worked with our CEO knows that price is important. But I would say that also, along with that expectation, is a efficient delivery. You can have a very inexpensive rate, but it can take twice as long, and then what have you really gained? So the value for the money is key, and if he feels he's receiving a high value for a rate received, then there's no issue.
Carol, you got anything on price?
Yeah, I agree with your comments. If the value is high, there is of course, and this important transactions, you will look less to price, but then you compete also more with the in import material transactions with the big brands. So what the biggest thing what general counsels suffer with is not the big transactions, it is getting the massive volumes in a global company of the day-to-day legal work done, and that's what commoditization, what you were mentioning, that is a massive stream of work. And that needs to be organized in an international group. And in fact, the big question there is, how do you do that? Do I organize myself in-house, or do I get an efficient outside network of what I would call boutique law firms who can understand my business and help me? That's what I need there. And I think we organized a mixed model. For some jurisdictions, when we can pull it in-house, we simply pull it in-house and we can build the knowledge. And actually, our in-house legal department starts competing with you, with all of you. We have built in Ingram Micro, we have a shared service center in Bulgaria. We have almost 20 young lawyers sitting there. And they specialize in what's important for our day-to-day business. They did study, they know languages, they can understand what's going on in our business, they understand new projects, they learn, they develop. So we actually already started competing with you in this new world. But that's where we need you. We can also not have, we have restrictions as well with language, with knowledge, and that's where we need you in this commoditized segment to deal with that massive volume. And there, with that massive volume, price is important. And personally, my belief is that if you would adjust your cost structures much faster, you could create much more volume. So you're too expensive there.
Any thoughts on price?
Yeah, I mean, I think the value equation is really an important topic. I think the commoditization topic is also important, and where things get tiered out. I mean, we've worked in the technology and software industry, and you see different things becoming commoditized and different things shifting in terms of price points. You have offshore and nearshore centers, and I know that's happening, I guess, in the legal industry as well. So yeah, there's always a chance that you're never really going to be protected in price. You're going to have to continuously find ways to be delivering more value and doing it cheaper. Otherwise, you'll price yourself out of the market. So everybody's shopping for price.
It's the same in every business. Let me throw a tricky one on the table, because this comes up time and time again, and we've just had it now, which the lawyer has to show value. And I'm going to sort of put maybe our clients on the spot a bit. What does that actually mean? How does the lawyer understand what's valuable to the client? What is it, and how do you go about it? Who'd like to have a go at that? Brenda, you sound pretty...
Sure. How can you bring value to the client? That's the question, yeah. I think that what I look towards our professionals, whether it's tax professionals or legal professionals, there's no way that one person or even a department within a company can stay abreast of all of the changing laws in each individual country. We're operating in 40 to 50 different countries. And so the value that can be brought is to send some red flags through of things changing. My most recent visit to the Netherlands, we had a session on data privacy, and it scared the heck out of me. Like, how are we going to do business in Europe with this type of legislation coming through? So if that, I have not had that exposure, I wouldn't even have been familiar or even aware that it was going to create some really large problems for us. So that's where the value can come in, absolutely.
You touch a very interesting subject, which is data privacy, and it is exactly in this US General Counsel, you have the business, you're faced with, we want to do this as a business, we want to move on, business is moving on, and then regulations come, and it is the brain of the outside counsel, not just to read you the law, but bring you, as you mentioned, the solution, and understand, take the time and effort to understand what's going on in the general counsel's mind. What is the business demanding? And if you can think with the business and have spent some time about what your client's business is about, then you really will be able to help him and allow your general counsel to be successful in front of his CEO, and then you add value.
Let me throw that one to Stinson and Christina, because again, I come across law firm after law firm on the website or when they're talking to you, we're different to our competitors. And when you look at it, you think, well, where? And it's often very hard for a firm to describe why they're different. I mean, we've gone well past what I used to get about 20 years ago, which was, well, we have very good lawyers, I think, but past that, most firms realize that competitors do too. But they're still struggling in many firms, and Carol, you just hit on a key point, I think, which is the real understanding of the client. And if I exaggerate to make the point, when we do a lot of client interviews, we find clients feel that the lawyer doesn't really spend enough time to understand the business. They've got a sense of the law in a superficial sense. But when I talk to the lawyers, they say, we understand the business completely. And I just wonder if we start over here, what's your experience of the clients really understanding the business? Is it high, medium, low? If it's medium or low, what do they need to do to get it better?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in and take this one. I mean, I think these guys are hitting on the key point. Nobody's buying legal advice because they want to buy legal advice. What they're trying to do is achieve an outcome, and legal advice is just one of the inputs to the outcome. So there's many other inputs, but at the end of the day, you're trying to achieve an outcome, and so you need help achieving the outcome. You don't need legal advice, right? And so, yeah, I mean, there's one guy who I'll say is the best lawyer I ever worked with, and he actually works for Caterpillar in San Diego. We've worked with him on many different topics, and why is he good? Because he comes at it, I'll call it, with a deal-making mind. Like, he figures out how to make the deal, and he's not figuring out how to block the deal, or how to create obstacles for the deal, or how to create lots of risk issues for the deal. He figures out how to make the deal and do it in a way that protects us, the other party is happy enough with it, and we actually get to that outcome that we're trying to achieve. So the closer you can get to helping your clients achieve the outcome, helping them make that deal that they want to go forward with, for me, that's where the value comes in.
Yes, if I can, I would add that one benefit of having First Law International is that they know very well our business model, and our activity. So they should also be an interface through which the law firm understand our activity. So we don't go directly to a law firm because we have a First Law International which already knows from many years our activity and can explain and interact with the law firm. And so for us, this is a benefit, this is a good service, because as I said before, the competence is the first important thing in our the specialization is very, very important, and of course then deliver effective solutions. So First Law is for us a benefit under those circumstances, because they already know the business, and they can be very useful in order to discuss directly with the law firm and to solve any problem.
I mean, there's two little cliches which some of you may have heard before on this same topic, which is, as you said, Stinson, that it's not really you're buying the law, you're buying something else, the solution. The two cliche jokes, which you may have heard, but forgive me if you haven't. One is the Revlon story, where Charles Revlon said, "We make cosmetics and the customer buys hope." And the Black & Decker story, which is, we make 3/4-inch bits, but the customer's buying 3/4-inch holes. That's the sort of example. I mean, the very simple examples, the customer is not buying, in a sense, what often you think they are. I want to put the elephant on the table, if I may, use a cliche again, which is the difference between the so-called integrated international firms and an alliance. And I'm not just asking you to use FLI, but just in general principle, if you've had experience, what is the difference, or what drives you towards one or the other? You may be very happy with an alliance such as FLI, but is there a time when you may consider using one of the integrated international firms, and where's that crossover? That's something that comes up time and time again in the sort of meetings we have here. Brenda, can I ask you to lead off again?
Sure.
She's on my left.
When will we ever use, I don't know, we had a bad experience in Hong Kong, so I think that actually drove us to the model that we see today with FLI. We are a very complicated, in terms of a business transaction company, but we are not a very large volume generator in each unit. So when we have an issue in Hong Kong or South Korea or Thailand, we need a very value-added solution rather than going to a Baker McKenzie or a Denton that it will take more time for them to even be introduced to who we are and what we do and what the issue is. And that's already been communicated in the FLI network if we do go to a country where we have not been before. So them just knowing us, we feel as though we are a very special client, even though from a big firm we would be virtually no one.
It's an interesting question. So I think in the organization of how do you get your outside legal support, the way we are organized basically is you need, in international company, you need to have one of the big firms, the Baker McKenzie or some others. You need them because they have the brand, and that was mentioned earlier. And when you're confronted with the board, that's an important role sometimes to cover as the way you mentioned it. But it is important, and they have that advantage. But quite frankly, the quality of the legal service they deliver is not today is not materially different than what all of you can offer. But you don't have that typical big brand. So an in-house counsel also needs, for his real business, and for this day-to-day more volume work, commoditized work, needs to have, and that's where we struggle, that's where an in-house legal department struggles to deal with the volume and the question, how much are we going to do in-house and how much are we going to outsource to a good local boutique law firm with a good quality, with the right rates and good knowledge in the market. And that's where we struggle. So we found some good boutiques in countries where we are present. But then when you start growing faster, the time to find your good boutique, you simply don't have that anymore. Because when the thing's happening, you need to find that boutique firm the next day, because your business people come with an agreement that needs to be reviewed in a language or legal system you're not familiar with. And you think this deal for this small operation we have in this country, because of an acquisition you just did, it ain't worth to go to the big international firm, simply not relevant, and you don't have the in-house knowledge. And that's where Orlando and FLI come in, and they can offer you, they have the contacts, they have done the quality checks, they have met all of you, and they can switch on the light within 24 hours and bring you up to speed. So that's where, in my perspective, you add great value, and that's where the network adds great value.
Christina, any thoughts on the question, international versus alliance?
I agree with the other colleagues. The reasons are quick solutions and selected law firms. So when we need an advice, we don't need to select in each country around the world a law firm, and we trust in a selected and very trusted law firm with the competencies we need, because First Law knows our company and knows what kind of competencies we need. So quick solution and specialization. Those are the most important values.
Yeah, I don't have any specific experience with differentiating between, let's say, a global firm versus a network of firms. But when it comes to choosing a partner, and when it comes to choosing a vendor, corporations tend to, let's say, match up in terms of, let's say, size and capability. So bigger companies tend to feel more comfortable working with larger firms or larger suppliers. When we were setting up a nearshore development center for software, we looked at some of the big players like Cognizant and Accenture and Deloitte, but we ended up settling on a smaller player because they were a little bit more oriented to our size. They acted a little bit more like us. They were a little bit easier to work with. There was a little bit less bureaucracy, and so that was the right thing for our size of business and for the scale of work that we were trying to do. In some contexts, if we were doing something much, much bigger for a much, much bigger part of the organization, it might have been different. They might not have been the right choice for that type of work. So,
I thought we might just switch now, because a number of you in the room from time to time when meetings I've been in have said, clients say, and you've gone on with what you think clients say. And I thought, put some clients on the spot maybe. We've got them here, they're captives for the moment. Who would have a question to anyone on the panel? I've still got some more, but I just thought it might be a chance to give you a chance. We have one down over here. Just wait for the microphone. And if it's a general one, say. If it's to a specific person, say.
It's a general one. We're talking about commoditization, of course, the key word it seems to be today. I just wanted to tell you about an experience I had and to see if it rings familiar to the clients on the panel. We went to pitch for a global company which has a big subsidiary in Belgium. And when we arrived for the pitch, we had already made our proposal in advance. We were met by a team of 2 people. One was somebody from the legal department, the CLO. The other one was the chief procurement officer. So this is somebody who on Monday is negotiating, for the new water supplier. Tuesday, the energy supplier, and then Wednesday it was legal services. So for them, legal services are really a commodity. They don't know anything about the law. They just know we need legal services. How much are they going to cost? So it then turned out that our proposal, we had made a 10% discount, Jaap, by the way, which is very bad, I know now, we never should have done that, our proposal was deemed very high. We were told that another offer had a partner rate of 200 and an associate rate of 100. And I said, wow, that must be a very small firm. And they said, yeah, it's a very small firm. And then the legal person said, well, of course, she said to the procurement officer, you can't just compare apples and pears. There may be not the same quality in that small firm. They might make some mistakes. And then the procurement officer said, well, you know what? Maybe 5% of the time they'll get it wrong, but I'm willing to take that risk if I'm going to pay, much less than I would pay to the other firms that have come to pitch. So that is also something that really struck me. And I was wondering if in your companies, the procurement department has also a say in the buying of legal services.
I think it's a very good question. In international companies, those functions are created, global procurement functions. And they start with a global basis. They pull everything together. They start with the paper and the pens, the pencils. They go then to the more interesting fuel cards. They go to the leases, and then becomes more interesting. And when they've given their PowerPoints to the board a couple of times, and then they come to the point and they say, there's some still very valuable areas that we have not touched, like legal, tax consulting, and a couple of others. So, and clearly we are internally on their radar. And as general counsels, the reason why we have held off of these kind of in global procurement departments to stick their nose in how general counsels retain outside counsel is because of the difficulty in what is value versus hourly rates. So it is very difficult to assess. I've seen legal bills whereby we have hourly rates of 100 euros, as you mentioned, but whereby we spend 30, 50 hours and still don't get the point. And I've seen legal bills and spending 500 euros an hour, and after 5 hours you have a proper solution. So that's the reason, that's the argument we're using internally to say, look, this is very difficult to assess what's the value you get for your hourly rate, and that's the reason why we've, at least in our company, we've not yet faced that kind of evolution. But it is coming. In global companies, this is coming, and the pressure, because of what you were explaining this morning, is coming, and at a certain moment, and you are confronted with it, I suppose we as general counsels will be more and more confronted with this, and we will spread that issue out, so it will not only be the general counsel sitting in this forum, being part of this FLI conference, but maybe also a legal procurement manager, who will in a more independent way try to find a good bid for a commoditized solution that he wants to have.
Anyone else want to comment on that? I think we just had a couple of points. The UK market went down this route about 10 years ago, maybe even longer. Barclays Bank was one of the first. And a little story there, which I can share with you, is that they went through the procurement, ran it, and they wiped out, they just kept dropping the hourly rate, and they wiped out every leading firm in the UK off the panel. And guess what? The first big job that came along needed one of the big leading firms because the firms on the panel didn't have the expertise. I think what I'm seeing now is it's still coming in parts of the world where it's already been in. The procurement people are being put into more of an advisory role, not the final decision-making role. So they can have an input and say, and test, are you sure you're going to get value at $500 an hour, $1,000 an hour? But they're no longer driving it. But it is a problem in many parts of the world still. Another question. We are going to have to finish sort of soonish because we're running a bit behind time. But another question? Yeah.
My question would be on diversification of sourcing of legal services. Because in the old days, sometimes one company had one law firm and they were happily having their relationship ever after. And that one law firm was always asked about the questions. And because it was a full service law firm, it mostly or could almost always provide a solution. Nowadays, it's much more diversified, and in Hungary, for example, we have legal counsels and general counsels telling us that, yes, we know you're a good law firm, but we need to stand on more legs. We need more, and then we value you for that. But we know you could provide us further services, but we need to have competition. We need to have others. And that's where panels developed. And I'm wondering what your views on this diversification. Would you be satisfied with one law firm or legal alliance, or you need to have 3 or 4 things cards in your chest?
Well, I think it's difficult for any one law firm to be an expert in every area of the law. I see a larger distinction between human resource type law, for example, versus trade compliance and general acquisition work. So it does lend itself to being segregated that way. And I do also agree that there is far less of that golf course relationship building than there was previously. And there's a lot of pressure, especially in the public realm, for companies of not having any sense of that type of favoritism. And so I'm sure the board here has policy statements within their company that actually restricts that type of behavior. So it does come down to the value delivered and the expertise of a particular law firm.
That old-fashioned relationship piece, obviously, the simple fact of relationship is by far not sufficient anymore. That is the introduction. It is the objective quality and knowledge of your client that helps you in the business. And no general counsel can afford in a company to have an exclusive relationship all the time. You need to keep your outside law firms hungry and competitive. So they need to know, and I'm very open about that we use several law firms. So you compete with the other firms you were mentioning, not because you know the general counsel, but because you understand his business better. And that's where why the general counsel will be, because he knows this law firm, they understand this piece of my business. It's far more easy for me to go there versus another law firm at this stage. And we try to develop some knowledge where our external law firms are good at and how they compete with each other. So the times of one relationship for many years is a long time over.
We probably got time for one more question if Martin allows me. I'm probably going to get beaten over the head by Martin, but let's go have one more.
When you use the word commoditization, Brenda was just talking about relationships, but when you use that word, it de-emphasizes the importance of the relationship to some extent, I would say. This is just a comment. The in-house client that clearly sees our firm only as a commodity, completely de-emphasize the need to have any kind of close relationship with us. We're a commodity until there's a big problem, when it's their kind of backside on the line, and then we thought, oh, I thought I was just a commodity. You could pay my bill when you wanted to. You could, but somehow. For certain work, it's almost anonymous. You never meet me. I never meet you. I get that. Maybe it even goes through another firm before it gets to me. But to advise I don't know, to give good professional advice, it seems like you have to have, there has to be an investment on both sides, and unless it's just checking boxes advice. You know, that's just one comment.
I think that's a good point. We probably better wrap up, given I think we're about 15 minutes behind time on the schedule, but we can make it up as we drift through the day, I'm sure. But I think, hopefully, you got a lot of value from hearing the client side. I think they were pretty forthcoming and I think pretty honest. They're going to be around for a little while. So if you have other questions, you may want to, don't overdo it, give them a break, but you've probably got the time to have a couple of questions with them. So I think join me and thank the clients very, very much for putting their time and giving time to it.